welcome everybody to one of the nicest moments for me in Davos, which is where I have the pleasure of having a great friend in Ross Perot Jr., who always has great insights. And Ross, what I love about you is that every year you're practical. You don't talk theory. We have an open discussion. Ross has agreed to take questions, and he's very open to go wherever you want to go. So I'll kick it off. But I'm sure there's many questions on many people's minds with what is happening in 2024, year of elections, of wars, economic uncertainty perhaps. And let's have some fun, enjoy, and get some interesting perspectives. So,
Tassos, thank you. It's always fun to do this.
So let me start off by asking you a little bit about 2024. We always start this way, looking at the economy, but not the big picture theory. What are you seeing on the ground? What is happening in the U.S.? What is the consumer? What are you feeling and what are you seeing?
No, I think in our world, it's you look at the data we look at every day, the clients we look at every day. In the United, this is U.S. U.S. is slowing down. We build a lot of industrial buildings, big industrial deal flow. The leasing is off easily 50%. The development boom that we had, the banks no longer lend to U.S. Basically, banks have stopped lending to U.S. real estate. So construction is dropping 40-50%. That means construction jobs are down, architects are down, everything related to construction. Now, the opposite is home building. Home building is booming. And I thought home building would be slow in 23. Now, I'm in Texas also. So we're in a high growth market. And Dallas-Fort Worth, where I live, is the #1 new home market in the country. So it's a little bit of a bubble, but we had outstanding new home starts last year. And the reason is that so many people are moving into the state, and it's difficult to build homes in the United States. And with the low interest rates, so many Americans locked in a low mortgage, they now really can't afford to sell their home and move up. So if you move into Dallas and you want a home, it's going to be a new home. So home building is good. Commercial, industrial, again, is going to be slow. Now, office space is going to be really slow, and so the office sector is damaging. And multifamily, leasing is slowing down. Rental, we can no longer increase the rents like we could. Rental rates are now flat. And we're seeing more and more of our younger clients moving home. They can't afford to have an apartment anymore. They're moving back with their parents. And this is in a high growth market. So to me, in the U.S., I expect slowdown.
And Ross, if I may ask, a theme that we've seen here, we touched upon it last year, but it was abstract. Artificial intelligence was big talk, but this year, I guess ChatGPT and the usage has made it prevalent. And the question is, what are you seeing in terms of like threats and cybersecurity, and how do you see malicious actors coming? It's a year of elections. People are also not clear with what they're doing, right? They're giving all their information, security. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that?
I mean, artificial intelligence is a phenomenal tool. And what people don't realize, it's been around for a while. It's been B2B. It's been business to business. And for a long time, we talked about quantum computing. And cybersecurity, the big risk was quantum computing. Quantum computing would break the security codes. We'd all have to change the codes, et cetera. But now artificial intelligence, you've got the same threat. But it's now it's going consumer. That's why ChatGPT, people see it, they can use it. And so within our firm, it's fully embraced. I've told every team to come up with an AI strategy and every team to go out to their vendor base and their clients and understand the best way to embed it inside of what we do. Because if you don't have it and you don't learn it, you're really going to fall far behind. We're already in a fast economy, very, very fast economy. You can't afford to miss a step. So don't miss AI and embrace it is my message to clients and to our team. And then yesterday I was in an AI meeting, and it was a very interesting comment. They said, you take a 28-year-old programmer and a 22-year-old programmer. The 22-year-old programmer is a much better AI programmer than just the 28. So that 6-year gap, it is a young person's business. And so embrace the youth in your company. Give them the ability because they're the ones that see it and feel it, and they grew up with technology. A man my age, I was around it, but I didn't grow up with it. It's not embedded in me like somebody 22. So lean on those young folks to create a miracle inside your business, but then have the courage when they come up with a great idea. And if you think it's a crazy idea, give them enough rope to try it out. don't immediately discount that young, great idea, especially if it's on your AI team.
I have two more questions before I open it up. Global situation. We're seeing two active wars. We're seeing suddenly the Houthis getting involved in missiles flying in and disrupting commercial trade. We're seeing potential tension in Taiwan. What's your take for 2024?
We are entering, is this pre-World War III? And are we back to arsenal for democracy? And is the free world and the democratic world ready to conquer and face the challenges that we have? We had lots of Cold Wars going on a couple of years ago. You had a Cold War in the Ukraine. You had a Cold War Crimea, kind of start off the Cold War in Ukraine. You've had a Cold War in the Mideast, hot war, Cold War in the Mideast for years. You've had kind of the coldish war with China, Taiwan, which is becoming very warm. And then in our world, if you come to U.S. politics, which we'll talk about in a minute, U.S. border. The U.S. border, when I toured the border a couple of weeks ago, the day they had the largest number of illegal crossings at Eagle Pass, I was there. And so I saw it. And it is a huge issue, a huge problem. And so it's not a war per se, but in American politics, it is a hot topic that's going to have to be watched. So the world is difficult. It's gotten more difficult. And if you look at how it's spreading through the Mideast, so 2 nights ago, the direct Iranian missiles into northern Iraq, into Erbil, and killed an Erbil businessman. Iranian missiles into Pakistan. And then we read about the North Sea. We read about the Houthis. Tremendous challenges. Can we face these challenges? Of course we can. Can we defeat the threat? Of course we can. The issue is, do you have the will? Do you have the courage? And then do you have the leadership ability to unify the free world, to unify the democracies of the world to face the threat? I think we do, and we will.
I would be remiss not to ask. It's a U.S. election year. Your father ran for U.S. president, so you know this very well.
A little bit.
Trump in 2024, what are you seeing? What do you think will happen in the U.S. election?
If you look at the trend lines now, as I tell my Democratic friends, I said, you guys are really helping Trump every day. I said, the policy mistakes you've made, the global mistakes you've made, the weakness that you've seen, all that's done is help Donald Trump. And let's go back to the border. The way the border, because the border, I went and looked at the Border Patrol charts. You had the Trump years, and as soon as Biden takes over, the immigration problem increases 2 to 3 times. It's a direct policy problem. And I said, even the Democratic mayors are now complaining about immigration. Go fix it. New York is complaining. Chicago's complaining. So both parties now have the problem. And I'm hoping in a week or two we'll get a temporary issue fixed on immigration. So in my opinion, bad policy has basically made Trump even better. And I don't know if people have read Bret Stephens' column in the New York Times, but you really should. And Bret Stephens says, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I'll tell you why Trump is winning. You read that column, it's pretty clear. Real America had a better life under Trump than they do today. 60% of the American people live paycheck to paycheck. Under Biden now, their money, their ability to their financial strength's going down 20%. So gasoline prices are important, food prices are important, and then the average American doesn't have time to follow foreign policy. But under Trump, is like, well, didn't have a problem in Afghanistan, didn't have a war in Ukraine, didn't have a war in the Middle East. The border was under control, and we didn't hear about China, Taiwan all the time. And so if you go that far, that's why Trump has support. And so Biden's going to have to, in Biden's age, is really hurting him within the American voting public. And even, if you look at the number, neither candidate do the American people want. The polls say we don't want Biden, we don't want Trump. We want 2 new players. I'm not sure we can get 2 new players, but also if you talk to a really deep political expert, he'll say we should have a huge amount of time left in this cycle. And don't be surprised if a candidate changes out.
Wow, that's a big one. So let me open it to the audience, please.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Just on this point, a continuation of the last topic you were discussing, you made there might be a new candidate. Do you rule out perhaps Kennedy, who is acting as an independent player, And it's probably also in a better position because the two parties between themselves and the
I mean,
houses.
the third party.
Yeah, exactly.
We did the third party.
Yeah.
That's what my father did. And third party is very, very difficult. And my father got over 19% of the vote. So for a very difficult road, he did it. But he spent his own money. He had incredible energy, incredible courage, and had amazing charisma. If you watch his speeches, he could connect with the audience, and he was well known to the American people. For decades, he was well known. There's no one out there today that's got that combination that can self-fund with charisma. And when people looked at my father, they saw a man who was only running because he wanted to help the nation. And he was a pure patriot, and that's what they wanted. That's why he got the 19%. So now my father did it. The system has now made it really hard for a third party to do that again. And the states have made it very hard to get on a ballot as a third party. No Labels is trying, but I think they might be up to, someone might know in the room, 20 states? That's right. About 20? So they've got 30 to go, and it's hard. And so I'm not sure. And the no Labels candidates that they're talking about right now are pretty traditional. They're known. And there are a couple of military heroes they're talking about. Maybe that'll move it. But I don't think the third party in today's system, that is not going to change it. I think it's going to be one of the two conventional parties.
Thank you. Please. And we'll go to the back.
Hey, Ross. Chris Marlin used to be with Lennar, worked with Todd Platt.
Hey, how are you,
Used him
Chris?
a lot. Good to see you
Sure.
again. You mentioned.
Why are you at Greek House?
Well, I got some Greek friends here.
There's always a Greek connection,
That's
right?
right.
Greeks
That's
ever
right.
got it.
That's right.
So what's that big joke? Two kinds of people in the world, right? Greeks and people who want to be Greeks.
That's right. I'm a wannabe. So you mentioned housing in some of your opening remarks, and I'll bring that to geopolitics. I live in Florida, where Lennar is headquartered, and our governor has basically restricted in a substantial way the purchase of homes by individuals from certain countries around the world, aligning it to some sort of national security imperative, which, of course, as the governor of the state of Florida, is interesting in and of itself. How do you see geopolitics working its way into the American real estate equation writ large over the next, let's say, 10 years?
I didn't know DeSantis was down to the home.
He is.
Is he? Well, you're kind of out there on the home. I think what you've got to do is, basically it's focused on China, and it's the Chinese threat. And the real threat is the Chinese buying a lot of agricultural land around American military bases. And that's where it started. And that's a valid threat. And I think if you are tied to the Communist Party and you want to buy land, there needs to be a CFIUS-type process to say, wait a minute, what are you doing? And why are you coming in next to our military bases? And so that, to me, is the issue. I wouldn't go down to the home. That's a little too deep. Yeah. But so Texas has tried to pass agricultural land next to military bases. And that, to me, is a very valid concern. It's a national security concern, and that should be done in the appropriate way. But you don't want to do anything to slow down men and women that want to come into your state and build a successful business. Because Texas and Florida are the two high-growth states. Was I accurate on housing? Is that your view on housing? What I said? Yeah. You guys are doing great. Thanks for buying lots from us.
I'm Tate Dooley. I'm from Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic for the election cycle, obviously. But you've mentioned agriculture a few times. I actually represent a company called Backyard Farming Supply that I started as a 20-year-old. I'm now 36. How important do you see agriculture playing into the next election cycle? And what concerns do you have about food security for Americans past 2024?
Agriculture plays in every country's election cycle. I mean, agriculture is a very important part of every country and its identity. The agricultural industry in the United States is extraordinarily strong. It's a fabulous export business, and one will continue to grow and enhance. And because of the technology out in farmland and with cattle, we're extraordinarily productive. So food security for us is important, but if you're China, they're in trouble. China's got to import their food and their fuel. That's why China will delay, I think, the invasion of Taiwan, because they're not economically ready to invade Taiwan. Because when they do, you've got to assume the same sanctions are going to drop on top of them. and they're not ready for it. That's one reason China's building a coal-powered plant a week, is because they have a lot of coal in China. They've got to wean themselves off imported oil. So I think it's very important. It's a great industry, and thanks for being in it.
For sure. When we look at the impact that the issues in Russia and in Ukraine and how they are some of the largest fertilizer manufacturers, I speak to farmers every single day, and a lot of them are tilling their crops into the ground because they can't afford the fertilizer, the pesticides, the herbicides, the fungicides, as well as the labor, logistics. How do you see this changing, or what would you recommend to make this change to allow agriculture to be more sustainable?
Those are really great questions. And you now entered an area where I don't know. How about that?
That's all right.
But I'm glad you pointed that out. So I think if it's certainly, if that's going on, then the agriculture bills coming through are not going to address that.
No,
I think the ag bill's coming. Ag is very bipartisan. And so you would think that there'd be a way to get the input costs down for agriculture.
It all goes back to like the infrastructure. Like I actually have a fertilizer company. One of my ingredients this year went up 106%. If you were to pass that along to your consumer, your customer, your farmer, they would think that something shady was going on.
That's right.
I think
because
there's
the
a lot
price
to
of oil and
discuss
gas?
there.
Was it the oil and gas inputs? The fertilizer inputs?
Plus
Okay.
everything, right? Thank you.
But that's the inflation. I mean, that's the inflation people feel.
Right.
Any other questions? Because I have one last one.
Very cool.
We definitely need to get you to Greece this summer, hopefully.
Okay.
And my question is, what are you thinking of Greek leadership?
Because of what Tassos has told me and how well the Greek budgets are now working, I said, Tassos, we need the Greek philosophy in Washington right now to tighten up our budgets and get our spending under control.
Ross, thank you so
I will
much.
come if I can go fly helicopters to you, then I'll come. Perfect.
It's a deal.
Good.
Thank you for being with
Tassos,
us
good to
yet
see
again.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.